for the evening of April 22nd, 2025. My name is Rob Champetti. I have the privilege of serving as chair of the ZBA. I'm going to take a moment and introduce my colleagues to my left and the board. We will establish for sort of legal purposes the 5 voting members, but I will give you a hint. It's probably going to be the 5 people you see this evening. I will go through just a quick flow of how the evening will progress. For any of you that are lucky enough to have never been to a zoning board of appeals hearing in the past, I will go through just quickly the big sort of headline sequencing of what we do, how we do it, and how each application is taken. And then this way there's a sort of a familiarity of what to expect. So without further ado, I'm going to take the roll. We'll establish that we have a legal quorum to conduct the business of the ZBA this evening, and then we'll get right started into the agenda. As Mr. Port to my immediate right, our planning director has pointed out, we're also recording and broadcasting to an ever waning but never gone community of online folks. And this is sort of a COVID adaptation that we still do. And it's a function of convenience. So we will be publishing everything that's being seen by us on our laptops, anything that's been submitted, anything that's being referred to, we will be looking at. It will also be up on the screen, and anyone at home will be seeing the exact screen behind me. To my far right is Ms. Gretchen Joy. She is the keeper of the minutes. She has the unfortunate blessing of having to write down everything that we all say. If you are going to speak during public comment, we just ask that you kindly give your name and address so that Ms. Joy can record that. We don't have any podium or microphones, so this device in front of me is called an owl, and it is recording us and for anyone that might be listening. But you just feel free to speak from your seat and just give us your name and address. So calling the roll of the Newburyport Zoning Board of Appeals, we have Mr. Ken Swanton here, Mr. Walter Chen here, Mr. Stephen Delisle here, Mr. Larry Ginta, present, and Rob Champetti. I'm present. That makes us 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In order for the ZBA to conduct business, we have to at least have a minimum quorum of 4 voting members. We have 5, and our 5 voting members will obviously be those present to my left. So we do have a quorum, and we'll jump into our agenda this evening. When we get into the public hearings, we're going to go through the sequence of hearings. The way this works is it's broken down into segments. As the chair, I will read essentially a brief version of the public notice. I'll describe the application that's before us by address, by applicant, and then a brief sort of natural language version of what the applicant seeks. The applicant seeks a variance or a special permit for nonconformities. That's the legal permitting that the applicant is seeking. However, to make it simpler for anyone that's following along or is here to speak in connection with an application or is watching and following online, I'll also simply describe it in just as brief and natural language as possible. So the applicant seeks all necessary permits to construct a 3-season porch or to extend an existing nonconformity and construct XYZ. So it'll be easy to sort of understand exactly what is before us. After I read the public notice, I'll then turn the floor over to the applicant or the applicant's representatives, whether it be the applicant's attorney or architect or engineer or designer or any or all of the above. We'll hear from the applicant. The applicant will make their presentation, usually based on presentation slides and other materials. Those materials will be published behind me. They're also on our laptops, so we're seeing them at the same time, and anyone online is also seeing what we're seeing and what you're seeing. After the applicant makes the presentation, I'll close that portion of the public hearing, and we go into public comment. During public comment, Mr. Port will put a slide up, which is really sort of a placard that describes the rules of the road with respect to public comment. You may simply just raise your hand. I'll recognize you in no specific order. We'll ask that you give your name and address, and then just simply speak your mind. You needn't be pro or con, though you're welcome to identify yourself as such. You can say I'm, speaking in favor of or, in opposition to, or you can simply just share your thoughts. There's no reason. We don't require that you fall into a column, but you're welcome to if you so choose. We do ask that you kindly keep it to about 2 minutes. We usually have no issue with that. I will, as gently and courteously as possible, try to signal to any member of the public who's speaking to kindly sort of bring it to a conclusion, just in the interest of the evening, our flow, and others that may wish to speak in other applications. Once we've gone through the room live by hands during public comment, We'll poll anyone that might be logged on online. Mr. Porter, let me know if there's anyone who raises their hand. And then for anyone that is online, is there anyone online right now?
Just a now.
Okay, anyone that's online will be able to electronically raise their hand on Zoom. We'll recognize that and we will hear from them as well. Once we've gone through the room, then online and public comment, I'll close that portion of the public hearing and we go to questions from the board. This is usually the point of the evening when I point out, if you haven't been to a board meeting like this before, that if you choose to frame your public comment in the form of a question, please know that we mean no discourtesy to anyone if we do not respond directly to your question. We're hearing your question, we're all going to be taking notes, but the format of the evening is such that we won't be able to engage in an answer on the spot and in that moment. But we're hearing those questions and you will surely see some version, if not an identical recount of your question in the third segment of the evening called Questions from the Board. This is when board members will pose questions to the applicant and in many instances we'll be adapting questions that have been raised during public comment that are not unusually also shared by members of the board. Once we've gone through questions from the board, I'll close that portion of the public hearing and we go to the final segment, which is deliberations. Deliberations is when the members of the board here will basically discuss out loud, in full sort of, public view and public observation, whether or not the applicant and the application meets the legal criteria for whatever relief is being sought. If the applicant's seeking a variance, for instance, there's certain legal criteria that we must find as a board. So we discuss it and we deliberate out loud and we sometimes come up with additional questions. And if that happens, we pose those questions. Once we have finished our deliberations, we close that final portion of the public hearing. And this is when I will entertain a motion by any member of the ZBA. I'll also just let everyone know that the format is a Robert's Rules of Order format. So you will hear me entertain, does any member of the board have a motion? And it's always going to be offered in the affirmative, which means it's going to be offered as a motion to approve. That's just simply a procedural mechanism. It doesn't mean that the board member who is offering that motion plans to approve it or vote in favor of it or supports it. It's simply the technical and procedural mechanism to get that motion to a vote. Once the motion to approve is made and then seconded by another member, I call the roll and we will call the roll and it'll be a yay or nay vote. And in order for the application to succeed, at least 4 members of the 5 that are here have to vote in the affirmative, have to vote yes. If 4 out of the 5 members vote yes, then the motion carries and the application is approved. And that's essentially the flow of this evening. And it's the flow of every other Tuesday evening for all of us. But I always take a moment to just share it if, in the event that folks are in the room that might be here for the first time. I just want to have an understanding of what to expect. So with that, I'm going to open the first public hearing. And this is an application that was continued to this evening from April 8th, 2025. It's the application of Laura and Jack Boyes, care of Lisa Mead, Tellerman and Costa LLC. This is an application requesting a special permit for nonconformities. The applicant seeks all necessary permits to construct additions to the rear of the existing structure that extend the nonconforming lot coverage. And with that, may we hear from the applicant? Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my name is Ben Roberts. I'm an associate at Power and Costa, 30 Green Street. With me is Scott from Architects. And we're here on behalf of Laura, Jack Boyes, and here with us tonight for School Street. So we're here for a special permit for nonconformities. So this is just an overview of the property. So for background, the property is in the R2 and DCOD zoning districts. We're seeking to construct a 1-story mudroom and a 2-story addition at the rear. Proposal would remove 20.6% of the walls and add 348 square feet. So for historical backgrounds, this property construction was constructed in 1720 according to assessor's cards, or between 1775 to 1800 according to the district data sheets for this computer. And so again, the proposal is to construct a 1-story mudroom addition and a 2-story addition of the existing kitchen wall. There's no changes to the front elevation and everything's continued. So there are four pre-existing nonconformities on this property. The first is for lot area, which is 5,986 square feet, where 10,000 square feet is required. Frontage with 80.45 feet, where 90 feet is required. Front yard setback of 3.3 feet, where 25 is required, and lot coverage of 34.7 feet, where a maximum of 25% is allowed. That last one is the only not really for tonight. We're proposing to increase that by 1.9% to 36.6%. If you recall, we were here last summer for a special permit for a similar application. We decided to just submit this as a new special permit application instead of a major modification because it would kind of be the same process anyways. So back in the summer, we had approved 37.4%. So this is a little bit less of an increase compared to the last time we were before. So with that, I'll pass it on to Scott. We'll talk about the elevations.
Thank you, Attorney Roberts. Well, good evening, everybody. Scott Brown, the architect for the project. So this is a very old house, and about 25 years ago, it was completely rehabbed. And before that, it was a two-family. And it's kind of hard to envision, looking at it today, what it was like when it was a two-family. So although it is a very old house, I don't know where any of those old bones are. And because a lot of the existing structure was, reworked. So as Attorney Roberts had just stated, we were before this board in August and last August. I think a majority of you sat on that application at the time. And that application had two one-story additions. One of those additions was located in the back right corner, and the other one-story addition was located at the back left corner in the form of a mud. At the time, we were intending to work with the existing one-story addition that's on the back of the house. And that one-story addition was part of the rehab work that was done 25 years ago. So the application before you tonight does not have the single-story addition in the back right corner. It does have the single-story mudroom addition in the back left corner, which is essentially in the same shape as the application in August, and you'll see in a minute, but it does look a little different. The existing one-story addition, we are completely removing, and we are replacing it with a two-story addition that extends into the backyard by a foot. In August, we did have a lot coverage, as Attorney Roberts said, 37.4%. This application, although we are extending it into the backyard by a foot, the lot coverage is slightly smaller at 36.6%. So although we are extending it into the backyard, what we're asking for is less in terms of lot coverage. Next slide, please. So this is our architectural site plan. It's just a little clearer to see than in the plan from the surveyor. So the gray shaded area is the extent of our additions. I would, approximately 1/3 of that, the upper left-hand corner, is a single-story addition. The rest of it is going to be a two-story addition. Next slide, please. So our existing photos, on the top in the middle, that's our front elevation as the house, as you see it today. We're not proposing any work to the front elevation. Immediately to the right of that is a view from the front right corner. From this vantage point, we will not see any of our additions on the back of the house. The only work that we're doing in this view, which you'll see in a few minutes, is we are modifying the windows in that bay that's in the back right corner. The top left corner of the sheet, this is the view from the front left corner of the house, almost on the abutter's driveway. And, you know, from this viewpoint, you won't see the two-story addition in the back, but you will see off to the left there, a little glimpse of our one-story mudroom addition at the back left. On the bottom here, right in the middle, that's the one-story addition that was added to this house 25 years ago. That's what we're proposing to remove in its entirety and replace it with a two-story addition. Front left corner, that's the view from the back right. And you can see just to the left there, you know, that window bay that I just spoke of, that where we will be modifying those windows. And lastly, the photo in the bottom right corner, this is taken from the back left corner of the property. And this is looking towards what will be our single-story mudroom addition, which is going to sort of be just beyond those trash cans that you'll see in the foreground, and immediately beyond that will be our two-story addition. Next slide, please. So the next 4 slides, these are our sort of proposed and existing elevations on all 4 sheets. The existing elevation is at the top. Proposed elevations are at the bottom. This is the front elevation of the house. We're not proposing any work to the front elevation. This is the right side elevation. So in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see that bay that I spoke of, and that is the bay where we're actually modifying windows. So immediately behind those windows, we are modifying the kitchen, and we need to put a countertop there. So we're actually raising those windows slightly so that we can have a counter on underneath those windows. And off to the right of that, lower right-hand corner, that's our two-story addition. It does have a low slope roof, so it's not to overlay on top of the existing roof. And also we want to kind of avoid any conflict with that existing dormer that's on the back of the house. Next slide, please. So I think we skipped over one there, Andy. 2, 3. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is you know, kind of rear elevation of the house. On the top, there is that's our existing elevation on the top. Immediately in the foreground, that's that one-story addition that we're planning to remove. And immediately above that, there's a decorative arch top window. In some instances, I would advocate for reusing that window, but in this instance, that window is not original to the house and is a bit of a poor replica, and in my opinion, not really worthy of preservation. And on the bottom here, this is a proposed elevation, two-story addition in the middle, one-story addition off to the mudroom addition in the lower right-hand corner. And if some of you can remember, our proposal in August had a different architectural approach. You know, it was a little bit more, the additions we're doing a little bit more decorative and distinct, you know, from the house. And well, that really didn't translate well to a two-story proposal, so we pivoted. And the net result here is something that's a little quieter and more like, you know, more like the rest of the house. Next slide, please. Finally, coming full circle, this is the left side elevation, as you would see it from the driveway. You know, all of our work in this view is in the lower right-hand corner, lower left-hand corner rather, with our one-story addition in the foreground, two-story addition in the back. In terms of materials here, we do have a standing seam metal roof above that mudroom addition. This is to match some of the other metal roof accents on the rest of the house. For the most part, with the exception of a couple of areas, we're proposing aluminum clad wood double hung windows, rot resistant materials that will be painted. You know, our clients recently went through a bunch of replacement of the exterior trim work here. And it's kind of surprising that like sort of 25 years ago, the stuff that we were using just didn't last. So hoping to avoid, again, with these rot resistant materials. And then finally, our siding is going to be a wood bevel clapboard painted to match the existing house. Next slide, please. And finally, one of my favorite things to talk about, the DCOD calculation sheet, and one of my favorite things to do. This sheet shows, all of the areas in sort of pink or red that we are affecting, either removing in their entirety or covering up with an addition. And keep in mind, 60% of these areas are part of that addition that was done less than 25 years ago. And next slide, please. So with that, I will hand it back to Attorney Roberts. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. All right, so as the board knows that to grant a special permit for non-conformities, there must be a two-part test that we pass. And the first question is whether the proposal is an addition of a new non-conformity, which we do not. And then the second part is whether the proposed change will be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood when compared to the pre-existing non-conforming structure. And we argue that it's not. We think that size, scaling, massing, and volume are not detrimental. Existing, I said deck, but it should have been addition. We think that it's a reasonable increase of only 348 square feet of living area. And again, we think that the lot coverage increase of 1.9% is reasonable as well. We think that it's subservient to the main structure. It's not visible from the street. We took great care not to disturb the main roof line. And we think that the windows and siding and trim complement the existing structure as well. So with that, I think so just to compare again to the other houses and structures on the block, with this increase, the living area would still be 1,130 square feet less than the largest residential structure on the block, which is 31 apartment. For the record, I'd like to correct something in my letter. I said it's 1,180 square feet less, 1,130 square feet less. I read the two numbers backwards. I apologize for that. Next slide, please. And then similarly, we compared other residential units on other residential lots on the block. I think it's helpful just to go to the next slide. Sure. So what I did was I compared the first floor living area of residential units on the block and divided that over by the acreage, so they get an estimated lot coverage. So currently, our proposal, we are the 7th highest lot coverage on the lot. And with the increase, we move up one position to 6. So right now, there's 6 lots that have more lot coverage than us. And then with the proposal, there's 5. So we think that we kind of stay in the same relative location compared to other essential lots on the block. And then just to show you some pictures of the block, that's the on Federal Street. Go through these. Here's looking up the street, 5 School Street, 3 School Street. 9 and 7 School Street next door. 9 School Street again. 15, 17 School Street. 14 School Street across the street. And 18 and 20 on the same side. Street from our property. And it goes on. You go to the next slide, please. So this is the view from the backyard, looking across into Beck Street. So that's our presentation. We've also received 2 letters of support from neighbors. One from Dick and Nancy Monahan from 4 School Street and Rob and Shannon Rockford from 15 and 17 School Street. So that's our presentation. We respectfully request a special permit for non-conformities to increase the lot coverage. And that's our presentation.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Attorney Roberts, and Scott, thank you for the presentation. Anything further before we close the applicant presentation? Very good. All right, closing that portion of the application, we'll go to public comment. Anyone in the room wish to speak in connection with this application, either for, against, or just because? Any show of hands? None? Do we see any hands online? Seeing none, I will close public comment and go to questions from the board. Anyone? Larry, please.
It, has historical looked at this at all?
No, because it doesn't trigger the 25% requirement.
Okay, so you don't have to.
Exactly.
Very good.
Any other questions?
I've got a couple, oh, sorry. You want to go first?
You go ahead.
Good. They're probably just points of clarification. The two-story addition that's gonna be put on the back of the house will still be 25 and a half feet away from the rear setback?
Yeah.
It's closer, but it's still within the required 25 feet. Okay, and when you came before us last year, it was actually two additions on either side that had a bigger footprint than what you're proposing now, and that's why the lot coverage has dropped slightly?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I had, just wanted to understand.
Okay. Any other questions?
All set now.
All set.
Took care of mine.
Oh, okay.
Very good. One.
I have a little question. You mentioned it's 348 more square feet. So I assume since the bigger addition there already has first floor, that's basically the square feet of the second floor plus the mudroom? Is that what that is?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't have any questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Swanton. I don't have any questions that weren't already addressed, so unless there's anything further, we'll close questions and go into deliberations. Who would like to start in just fleshing out the criteria and whether the applicant's proposal meets the legal requirements, two-prong test?
I'll go.
Please.
First one, there is no new nonconformity. That's prong number one. Second prong is, it's not more detrimental to the neighborhood. This is a beautiful home. Where the addition is will be difficult to see from anywhere, and I'm sure it'll be done nicely. So I cannot imagine this would be more detrimental to the neighborhood unless one of the neighbors in the back was, just over the moon that it was too big. But you don't have that. We don't have anyone coming to us saying that they have a problem with it. My concern when I first saw it was, the lot coverage is going up, but thank you for pointing out, we gave you permission to go even bigger last year. So this is actually a reduction in lot coverage. And it's still within the setback. So I think with no new nonconformities and it not being more detrimental to the neighborhood, it does meet the criteria. And with that said, I could support the application.
Okay. Any other, any continued deliberation?
Yeah, I would just add to that, I walk down the street quite a bit, and it's a larger lot, and I try to imagine when I look back there, if you'll be able to see this thing, I kind of agree with my colleague here. This is somewhat invisible as far as impacting the look of the neighborhood unless you have to look behind it. And I think that's significant here. Normally, when you're intensifying a non-conformity, that's not good, but when it's done in this way, where it's not that many square feet and you can't tell from any public way, I think it's fine.
Very good. Anything further?
I would agree with these guys that I can support this for the reasons stated. I think, it's in the back as said, and we're actually going a little bit smaller from what was permitted last summer. So I am in support of this.
Excellent. Anything further? I'll just add that I agree with my colleagues, and I do believe it meets our criteria. I also think that it's a thoughtful design, thoughtful attention, not surprising. Certainly we've seen this team before us before, and it's nice to continue to see this kind of attention to historic detail and allow it to coexist in our world today. So that's not always an easy blend, but I appreciate it, so I can support it as well. Anything further deliberations? Closing deliberations, do we have a motion?
We'll make a motion to approve 11 School Street, DNC 25-8.
Very good. Mr. Shannon's motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Delisle, second. Motion's made and seconded. Calling the roll, Mr. Swanton.
Yes.
Mr. Shannon.
Yes.
Mr. Delisle.
Yes.
Mr. Ginton.
Yes.
And Rob Champetti, I vote yes. That's 5 in the affirmative. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Application's approved. Thank you.
Thank you,
Good
Mr. Chair.
evening.
Thank you, Gordon.
Yep, thanks very much. Going to the next application before us, this is the application of Jennifer Evans Smith, 8 Lois Street. This is a special permit for nonconformities. I had given notice I have to recuse myself for this application due to legal representation conflict. So I will step out and give you the helm on this one, and then I'll just come back to Ken Jones.
All right. So we begin with hearing from the applicant or their representative. Who do we have to, who's ever presenting this, please come forward.
Jennifer, we have you online. Are you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
I don't know if you can see me. Wasn't given that.
It might be due to our Zoom settings without spending a lot of time on it. It's due to the Zoom settings set up with the webinar. Apologies, but we do have your slides and I can flip through those if you'd like for the board.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So feel free to give whatever presentation you'd like.
Okay, so my name is Jennifer Evans Smith and I am the future owner of 8 Lois Street. Yeah, you can put the plot up there. So 8 Lois Street is in the Anna Jakes neighborhood. We're really excited to live there and be able to walk to work at the hospital and the kids walk to school. We really like the larger lot and we like where the original house is positioned on the lot, as well as the back deck. Unfortunately, it's a small house, as you can see there, and so we wanted to expand it, advance. The original plan when we put the offer on the house was to make sort of a rambling ranch and extend into the side yard, building by right, but we got concerned that it was going to look more like this because the ceilings are quite low, as is typical in a 1960s ranch, and we have very tall children. And so we are proposing a 2nd-story addition that will continue the non-conforming front yard setback. As you can see, it's 20.7 feet from the front, and we want to continue that up. As well, there is some exacerbation of the front yard setback because our designer felt adding a front porch would sort of soften the look and improve the design of it. We also included the proposed attached 2-car garage and driveway. However, we may or may not be able to sort of do that at first, and that is going to be within the setback requirements. You can advance the slide. So this is the interior structure, which is really keeping the original foundation, which is for both economic and environmental reasons, because concrete can be a big expense, as well as create a lot of impact. We kept the original structure very similar, keeping the staircase to the basement where it is, keeping the living room where it is, as well as the kitchen and dining room, and turning one of the bedrooms into an entryway to get to the proposed 2nd floor. Again, the bathroom is remaining where it is, and the other 2 rooms remain as they are. And then we added additional bedrooms and bathrooms upstairs, just expanding the footprint. And so this is what we propose the house would look like. And you can see it from the left side. Again, we're sort of doubling the height of the house, as well as from the right side. we tried to sort of keep in mind the neighborhood in general, which has a lot of small ranches like Lois, but also some 2-story split levels, colonials, and expanded capes. And then this is the zoning matrix, and you can see that, again, we're asking about the front yard setback, and that front porch did sort of worsen the front setback. And so I had the designer just mock up a different option if this was really important to the board, where we didn't have that front porch. And then I guess the final point to make is we really like that tree that is in the front yard. Provides beautiful shade, and it's just stunning. So there was a lot of debate or questions about whether or not we were going to keep the original driveway. Of course, if we're not building the garage, I think the house and the design functions just fine with the driveway where it is. If we do, or if we're able to create the garage, we are certainly open to removing the second driveway, but we would want to consult with an arborist because that driveway is so close to that tree. I'm just concerned that ripping it up might cause harm to that tree. And yeah, but we're not opposed to removing the driveway. It is sort of nice to have a second driveway to kids to play in, but we don't feel strongly about that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So the next part of the hearing is if anybody here would like to comment. Has anybody come here to talk about this? Yes, if you could just
26 Lower Street, we haven't supported this proposed change to the existing conditions. We support it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to say anything? And there's no one else online, right? Okay, so we'll close the public comment period. And now we go to questions from the board. Who would like to begin? Larry?
So I just have a question about the garage. It seems as if it's something you want to do, but you're not sure you're gonna do.
Correct. Yeah.
And then if you do the garage, then you would end up with a true two driveway situation, or would you do a second driveway anyway, regardless of whether you built the garage?
If we're not building the garage, we are not putting in a second driveway.
I'm just making sure what we approve here is so, okay. And then the only nonconformity that you're worsening, you said, was the porch, and you said there might have been an alternative. Did we see the alternative?
I put a mock-up of all the way at the end without the porch. I did
Oh,
not.
that last picture. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I did not include drawings of that. Yeah.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, who else would like to go next?
I'll go. I'm gonna jump on that porch again. If you put the porch in, I can't tell from the drawing, how big is it? How much does it extend towards the front yard? 4 feet?
It's 5 by 8.
5 feet, 8?
Yeah, 5 foot by 8 foot wide, 5
Oh,
foot
by-
deep.
Okay, 5 foot deep. So the zoning matrix that was supplied with the application says that you'd have a front yard setback of 20.7 feet, which I think is the existing foundation. So if you dropped another 5 feet, you'd be down to 15 feet. Am I correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, 15.7, right?
Correct. Yeah.
All right. And I guess you're aware, I assume, that the city commented that they don't like having 2 curb cuts on a street.
Correct. I believe that the Department of Public Works said that because there's no curb to cut and no sidewalk, they don't feel strongly about having a second driveway here.
Yeah, Andy, if you could.
Sure, if I could briefly, this is the comment I think that typically would come from the planning office or public services or both. And it also was a frequent conversation that I've seen in the city council when we talk about on-street parking. Neighborhoods are very different around the city, of course. But one of the concerns there is typically trying to reduce curb cuts in general and not lose on-street parking and not adversely impact the streetscape, so to speak. From appearances. So at the end of the day, one thing that might be a possibility here, defer the board, the applicant, not details, but if the garage is constructed, for instance, with the new driveway, there could be a stipulation that people will curb cut or driveways removed. That could be a discussion, point here. At the end of the day, it may be more or less important on one project versus another, but we have seen before, there's at least one application I could recall downtown where there was a very strong interest in making sure the on-street parking stayed the same. So again, just generally speaking, we try not to have too many curb cuts along a segment of streetscape and not more than one per lot unless necessary.
Just kind of a point of order, but did the Department of Public Services say in this case that they really do not want to have two curb cuts?
They said that they preferred not to have two, but they would be willing to accept the second one in this case in context. But again, best practice or recommendation preference aligned with our office, which is generally speaking to try to avoid two curb cuts per property if it can be done.
Thank you. What else you got?
So maybe this doesn't work, but you have the garage on the left side of the house, which forces you to build a second driveway. Did you consider putting the garage on the other side where the driveway is?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's too close to the lot line. Is that the reason?
Yeah, we only have 19 feet to that side of the house to maintain that 10-foot side setback.
So it's too skinny?
Yeah, and honestly, if we just thought the flow would work with the garage on the other side because there's so much space over there.
Okay. I have no other questions, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Shagnon. Mr. Dewan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Could you sort of elaborate a little bit more on the garage? I think I understood from prior question that it's something that you'd like to do, but you might not do. I'm just trying to I want to drill down on that because I just want to make sure that we have a set of plans in front of us that we can approve. So if you wouldn't mind speaking to that.
Yes, so we want to do the 2-car garage, but in the sort of current uncertainty of knowing how much the whole project will cost, if something from the project is going to go, it's going to be the 2-car garage. So, and again, that part of the project doesn't require any special permit per se. I just thought it should be included because that is our desire of what we'd like to do.
Yeah, if I could agree.
Yes, go ahead.
So I did through the chair, it's Andy Ford, Director of Planning and Development. Just generally speaking, one of the things that the board member is probably getting at, and just for the applicant's benefit, typically when the decisions are issued, the board is trying to be clear and the applicant's record is clear. This is something that we've become very thorough about in recent time, but to have a clear set of plans about what's being approved, especially in this case, if there's a desire for some flexibility to do one version versus another version, if you will, and just thinking about this usual manner, it could be, contemplate an approval that would allow one option versus another in terms of allowing the garage or not, but that might go to other stipulations or conditions in here. It's usually there's one set of plans that's being approved for one option that's clear cut, and then if there's modifications, an applicant might come back for a tweak to that. If need be, but the board could in this instance, if that's something that's of interest, possibly condition it to allow one thing to proceed versus another. But it is very important, as Nordal pointed out, to have a consistent set of plans that it's referencing what is being approved and what the zoning administrator, then the building department would be verifying is complete at the time of the occupancy permit or the sign up of the work.
Yeah, this is, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead. Thank you.
I was gonna say, this is the plan. The plan is to build the two-story house and the garage and the front porch.
Thank you. That's helpful.
You have anything
Yeah.
else?
No,
Okay.
So just to, I'm gonna point this towards the planning board planner are we here because of the porch specifically? So the garage does not need approval? Does the second floor need
The
approval?
second floor, it needs approval, and the front addition or entry needs approval.
Because of the front setback?
Correct.
I just want to drill down really what are the points that we need to.
Correct. It's the front setback and the upward extension, if you will, and sort of forward with that entry. It is pretty typical to have entries, and obviously there's the usual understanding that something, features like that are beneficial for breaking down a streetscape and whatnot, but it is an encroachment further into the setbacks. That's part of the approval for it.
Okay, follow up. And if we approve it with the garage, we're approving the driveway, but then have to put a note in that the old driveway at least needs, the curb cut needs to go away. Whether the asphalt stays on their property, that's up to them. We're just worried about the curb cut.
Well, that's what I was offering, I guess, for the board's consideration in discussion with the applicant and on this permit application is just that if you wanted to address the issue of, two curb cuts or driveways on the property, meaning extra coverage and, impact the butters versus landscape area, but not grass. You could stipulate, if there's a concern, you could stipulate that the old driveway be removed if the new one, or the new garage is being put in, something of that nature, I guess, that's of interest. And you can stipulate whether it's the curb cut being removed versus the driveway or both. There's some, discussion.
I mean, it's a nice little project, but I want to do something comprehensive so they don't have to come back.
Agreed.
Right. Say, if I could try, what I hear you saying, Andy, is that we could approve the proposed plan with the garage, with the stipulation that if it's built that way, they need to remove a curb cut. But that stipulation that if they choose not to build the garage, they do not have to change the curb cut.
Correct, that's exactly what I was getting at, and my assumption there, unless I'm missing something, my assumption is the board would include the removal of the bituminous driveway that's on that other side of the lot as well. That's a situation less than this.
And then we haven't really drilled down on whether the porch bothers and.
That could come during deliberations, or you could ask questions about it now.
Yeah.
Are there any other further questions from anyone?
I guess since we're,
We're not quite deliberating.
no, I was gonna ask another question.
Okay, go ahead. Go for it.
Would the applicant consider removing the porch if that's what the board wanted to have you do?
Absolutely, yes.
Just wanted to make sure that we could put some stipulations on there that the porch is gone, and the driveways, the curb goes back. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from?
I have a couple other.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had some questions about, material choices, because there are no notes on the elevation, so I was wondering if you could, let us know what you were planning in that regard.
Yeah, we were planning for horizontal certainteed siding material and the double hung 6/1 windows.
Okay. I think that's helpful.
Okay, no other questions here? I personally do not have any questions that haven't already been asked by my colleagues. So that gets us to the next stage of the hearing, which is deliberations, where we look at the two-pronged test in this case and figure out whether this meets it or not, and any issues that go with it. Who would like to begin?
I'll go ahead and start.
Go ahead.
So we have no new nonconformities here. We have the exacerbation of the front yard setback issue and the the intent, I guess we're going up in that setback as well. I have no problem going up with respect to the structure, adding a second floor. I'm not inclined to support the porch going out 5 foot further into the front yard setback, taking it down to 15 feet. That seems small relative to the 25-foot setback. So I'm okay with everything that you have here except for the front porch. I don't think that the project would be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. I think that the neighborhood, as the applicant noted, is, you know, there's mixed housing stock in the neighborhood. So I think that this will probably fit in just well. So that's where I am. I can support this without the porch.
Okay, who would like to go next?
I'll go. I guess I agree. And with the added stipulation, if the garage goes in, the curb cut
Yeah,
gets restored on the other side. Yeah, I guess as well, I've got some concerns with extending the front yard setback, so I'd like to see that porch removed as well. I know we don't set precedents, but we've had one within the last couple of months where we did the same. The porch,
we've been consistent.
we've been consistent on front yard porches. There is a way to put a landing. Right, it only counts if it has a roof on it. So that might be another thing you could consider, is you could put a landing with no roof. It doesn't break up the front of the house. It doesn't do what I think architects want it to do. Anyways, with that said, I can support it with the porch removed so that the setback isn't changed, and with that curb restored.
Okay. Mr. Junta?
I support the second floor, but I do agree with my colleagues here that the porch should be, just to stay consistent.
Okay, and for myself, could you put up that last picture without the porch? I'm very glad this was included by the applicant in the plan here. I actually think it breaks up the front pretty well. And it already has a little stoop on it, if you will.
Yeah, it's got the landing, solutions there.
Couple little steps on there. So I mean, I agree with my colleagues. I think it's, this house is already quite close to the road compared to the zoning, and going another feet is a lot. So I think what we're hearing is it's unanimous here that we want to do this. And I just want to say to the applicant, at this point, when we go to a motion, we vote it, we're done. But you've already said you'd be okay with without the porch, so that's what's about to happen here. I assume you're
Yeah,
okay.
I guess I just was wondering, can it be approved without the porch today, or did I need to? And without the porch and with the stipulation that the driveway may remain, but the only one curb cut per lot.
Right. So you would have to, if you were able to build everything you want here and put the garage in and put a driveway over there, you'd have to at least put the curb back on the other side. You could leave the asphalt in, but, you know.
Yeah.
Right, and the board would be, the board, but it sounds like the board would be conditioning it tonight, as opposed to something that continues to be needed for that purpose.
Right, I don't think.
I'm sorry, you cut out. I couldn't hear that.
It sounded as if you were wondering whether it continues to be necessary. I think the board is contemplating approval with conditions tonight to accommodate that scenario.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was just double checking since you're not in the room, and just to make sure, you know, that's about to get down here. So I need a motion.
Before we do the motion, yeah, we just check with the planning director. There's a note in here that the city solicitor was supposed to tell us we can do this.
Yes, I would proceed. Having reached out to council, yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure we weren't stepping on someone's.
We should have that on the record.
Yeah.
One other point, though, I think the Department of Public Works also wanted it to be stipulated by the board that the new tree went to the left of the new driveway as well.
It's a special condition. We can read that into the record.
Okay,
I didn't think there was a tree or sidewalk.
Yeah, if I could perhaps.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to clarify, because of the proximity here and the placement of the tree, and this is a conversation we're actually having a little bit further and more depth discussion with services right now. The distinction between trees that are actually in the public right of way and are true street trees versus street trees that are along the right of way line, the property line there, but interior to the lot. And therefore, may appear like street trees and function in some ways like street trees, but are actually on private property. So in some cases, if there's a tree that's of importance of some nature, it may be important to call out what that tree is, to clarify if it's going to go in a new location in some way, if it's not shown that way on the plan. Or in some cases, to stipulate that that tree or landscaping be preserved. In the case of a planning board hearing last week, they conditioned a tree tree and landscaping that was in the front yard setback to be maintained in association with that permit going forward, so that not only was the architecture of the home being approved at the time, but the landscaping to face the street was to be preserved in that way. The trees is what their concern was. So here, in addition to anything else that might be called out here, I just wanted to note, because it is something that isn't always picked up distinctly, is this tree is actually, we're looking at one that's on private property, but would function in some ways aesthetically like a street tree. So it may be important not so much to, it's not a true street tree in the sense of that particular subsection of the ordinance we're often referring to. It's not one that's being planted on or placing a street tree in the right of way, but rather it's a tree that's along the frontage and is important to the neighborhood for the same reasons, but may need to be treated in terms of a plan or a condition in the permit, rather than having the applicant plant a tree in the public right of way. I'm happy to clarify or elaborate, but
So we're asking them to plant a tree on their property.
in this
maintain.
case, correct, and to maintain that tree, so permit.
Can we do that?
Yes, yeah, these are, the plan, I should know, the planning board more typically deals with things like this, but they do periodically come up, less frequently, I would say, with the ZBA. Normally, it's usually architecture that we're talking about, but there is sometimes landscaping, I've seen this.
And we're not gonna tell them what kind of tree?
Here, we only, generally speaking, will defer to the Department of Public Services to the extent that they have specified either a tree species or a caliber. So we in the office aren't, particular on that, so to speak. We typically defer strictly to the tree warden who's commenting for this area. We commented, but in this case, Public Services, we're deferring to them on what would make sense here. Sometimes we're trying to make sure it's understood as we work with Public Services folks that sometimes they might be commenting on a tree, but it's important for them and for us to look at the plan here to recognize whether that's truly a true street tree, meaning legally a street tree that is owned by the city, going forward versus one that's on private property, but has to be maintained because of its appearance or is relevant in some way. In some cases, landscaping is shown on a plan like this as background information, and it's not necessarily needed to be called out in some way. And so those are sort of, pieces of information available for the board's consideration, but where it's important, it's sometimes necessary to call out on the plan or a condition that makes it clear what is happening with the tree or landscaping of some things.
And this particular tree condition has been described to the applicant?
Yes, I believe, Jennifer, you're aware of this condition in the Public Services input on that?
Yeah, when they told me that they would prefer one curb cut, but we're fine with 2 driveways. They said because it's a substantial rehab, we need to plant another tree, and they requested that it be, where it makes sense to be, which is in that larger side yard.
Okay. All right. So I think we're to the point of looking for a motion. You have another question?
I'm just a little bit bewildered that we're the city and we're telling somebody they need to plant a tree on their own private property. What if they don't want a tree?
Well, that's
maintained.
this is essentially the same negotiation, if you will, process where you're granting relief under zoning. You have to find that things are, not a detriment to the neighborhood, right? And, consistent with the character and whatnot. So
Yeah.
in this case, there are instances, well, maybe not as frequent that we talk about these things. There are instances in which the driveway curb cut or that's dealt with, the landscaping or fencing, things like that are dealt with. So it is within your purview. We sometimes see those things conditioned more explicitly or in a particular way. There was another project a few months back, the planning board had a condition in dealing with if the tree doesn't survive based on some work, this is the replacement trees that will be placed in there based on feedback from Public Services. And so there is, just as a reminder for the board members, there is also a very particular stipulation in Newburyport zoning dealing with when you have an additional residential unit for a substantial improvement to a structure to improve the sidewalks and trees along the frontage if there's something is out of date, if you will, on that frontage.
But they don't have a sidewalk, there are no trees in question.
Correct. And to your exact point, this is a great one. So this is exactly the confusion that I think was caused when we saw in this particular application last week, when we were talking with public services, was here we see, perhaps your confounded, right, is this is not actually in the right of way, this tree. It may be important, and public services may have picked up on that, saying, all right, there's a tree there, and sort of conceptualizing that as the street tree because it's so close. But the important part we were trying to know was the fact that this isn't actually in the right of way, it's on private property. The board still has the authority to look at that and see whether that's important in one way or another, the application and relief being requested. But to your point, and maybe the confusion here is public services is not looking at it under that particular provision of the zoning. They were looking at it thinking it might trigger that threshold, which is what we always have to look for feedback from them, because the project is could trip it. We have to ask for feedback. They gave us the feedback, but the confusion was that they were thinking of it as a street tree that's being replaced. We're not recognizing that it's actually over the lot line, is therefore a private tree. It's the board, decision to decide the applicant whether or not that's something to be addressed one or another. But it isn't that public services needs to comment under that particular provision here, where it isn't a street tree or sidewalk in the right of way. That's where it's precisely where the confusion was. It may be still useful feedback in some way, for you or, and work with the applicant, but it isn't falling underneath that provision of the ordinance, because it is not, to your point, a true in the right of way street tree or.
If I could ask a follow-up question, I mean, usually it's not this situation, and DPS says they need a sidewalk improvement or a tree, and we kind of put it into our thing and say, yep, you have to do that. Is this one a little more optional for us?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. The other.
We do require trees sometimes. We've had them put them in for screening.
Well, that's true, for
When a
screening.
two-story goes in, sometimes we'll say, put in some arborvitae's or something.
And you could think of this as screening it away, because this house is going up a lot,
Yeah,
and it's closer to the road than it should be.
it's just an odd one.
It's an odd one. My question to the vice chair, because I haven't been able to refer to you as the vice chair yet. Is that, could we vote on the tree separately first and then the rest of the project
We
second?
could certainly deliberate on the tree. Why don't we do it that way?
Yes.
And see where we are on the tree,
Okay.
and whether or not we want to include it in the amendment. All folks. So you have some concerns with the tree, apparently.
Yeah, telling a private landowner that they have to plant a tree on private property. It'd be different if we're talking about the first 4 foot of their house where there was a sidewalk and other trees and blah, 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 but this is not the case.
How do you other folks?
I mean, since the applicant said they seem okay with it, I'm a little okay with it. The only thing I don't like is we haven't defined what a tree is. I mean, I know, but I mean, you could come along and say, I want a 25-foot oak and, it'll cost $9,000. I think that would not be
We
kind.
never do that. Stipulate a tree.
Okay,
I mean,
I'm okay
I
with
mean, I didn't think the tree was up for debate, I guess, which is why I was bringing it up, because that's what I was told by, yeah.
If I could, again, just to clarify and remind to Ken's earlier question, it is more of an optional consideration for the board here in the context of the relief being granted from zoning and the setbacks and whatnot. Not because of that provision of the ordinance. We do route it for public services comment as required by the ordinance, by the permitting process. So that the board is aware, the applicant can work out in an application like this, whether or not a street tree or sidewalk improvements need to be upgraded. Here, there was an unfortunate, I think, confusion or misunderstanding about what is happening here with this one between the sort of the staff planner and the public services representative over whether this is actually a true street tree. So again, it's not something that's necessary physically because of the other improvements proposed in the plan, but it may be something of interest, and that's up to the board, entirely up to the board, whether or not to stipulate that. Or whether or not somebody in particular points here versus other applications where you might be just looking at the architecture and the driveways.
So, would someone else like to comment? Mr. Junta is not comfortable
Not
requiring a tree.
tree.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with
You
Mr.
are.
Gento.
All right, let's go no tree.
And I must add to that this person already has a huge, beautiful tree So it's not like there's no trees there.
Right, yeah, it's not Arizona.
So if you don't mind, dear applicant, I think we're going to delete the requirement for a tree.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
If you wanna plant a tree on your own, go ahead.
It's your,
Okay.
Take a nice.
you'll be under no penalty. Would somebody like to make a motion now?
I'll make a motion to approve 8 Lower Street, DNC 25-7, which with the 2 following conditions. If the garage is installed, the second driveway's curb will be reinstalled. And the original driveway, I'm sorry. Well said. Second one. The front porch will not be part of the project. It'll be the drawing, the last drawing that we had. 14.
Okay, it's been moved. Would somebody like to second it?
Okay.
Is there any additional discussion? All right. Go down the table here. Mr. Shagnon?
Yes.
Mr. Delisle?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And I vote yes. It is you have all 4 votes. You needed 4 and you got all 4. So it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
We'll
Good
get
luck
you
with
the
that.
written condition shortly, written decision shortly.
Good luck with your project.
Oh, thank you. It's all learning.
We had new ground we had to.
Excellent.
Trees.
We double trade.
You missed the fun one.
Okay, thank you. Picking up where we left off, this is the application for 10 Johnson Street, MREG LLC, care of Kevin Childs. This is an application for a special permit for nonconformities to construct an upward extension of the rear yard it is an upward extension of the rear yard setback to accommodate the construction of a dormer. May we hear from the applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Attorney Robert Peterson, 314 Main Street, Wilmington, for the applicant, MREG LLC. With me this evening is Kevin Childs, the manager of MREG LLC. I don't know what order your presentation is in, Mr. Chairman, but I'm prepared to address it in whatever pops up on the screen.
Sure, and I apologize, I have the drawings that were submitted, so if you'd like any particular, just advise, otherwise I'll just pull up.
That's fine. This is a request to extend vertically a nonconformity on the premises in the form of side yard setback. If you look at the zoning matrix that was submitted, there are only 2 nonconformities. The house lacks the required frontage. And it lacks the side yard setback. It's 23 feet where 25 feet is required. Also lacks the required on-street parking with 0 spaces provided, but Mr. Childs has indicated to me that he does plan on applying for 2 off-street parking spots. As the plans show, if we can go back to the house plans, Mr. Chairman. Oh, that's actually me. If we can go back to the house plans for a second. The purpose of the application is to add dormers on either side of the property. The dormers are actually in full conformity with the side yard setbacks. Even though the roof itself is 23 feet from the side yard setback, the dormers will be 26 feet from the side yard setback. What Mr. Childs plans on doing is putting a roof beam in the dwelling. As part of the presentation, I think we submitted a picture of the attic. It's the same picture that we used for the historical commission. Not sure it's clear in the presentation, so if we want to pass that around, it's very helpful. There's no carrying beam on the roof rafters of this dwelling. Mr. Childs plans on putting a beam in the attic of the dwelling, which is going to raise the ceiling, the roof height of the dwelling, 17 feet 1 inch. That's basically, I'm sorry, so 17 inches. It's actually a
Big raise.
it certainly would be. I probably wouldn't be standing here, gentlemen, if that was being raised. The ceiling height for the matrix is going from 28 feet, 8 inches to 30 feet, 1 inch. We did appear a couple weeks ago before the historical commission. They waived the demolition delay. And Mr. Child presented plans. The house is currently sided with vinyl siding. Plans on taking all the vinyl off and putting cedar impressions. And the color of the house will be New England brick. That basically is the gist of the application. There's no increase in any current nonconformities. In this position of the applicant, that the granting of this special permit would not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the current use of the house is currently vacant. The improvements proposed by Mr. Child will actually increase the value of the property and increase the looks of the property, and therefore it will benefit the neighborhood in general.
Very good. Anything further before we close the presentation?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you, council. So we will close presentation at our public hearing and go to public comment. Anyone in the room wish to be heard on this application? Seeing no hands. Anyone online? No. All right. Can't be any hands if there's no people, no bodies.
I was a
So-
neighbor at the commission hearing, but he was in favor.
Okay, great. Seeing no hands in the room or online, we will then close public comment and go to questions from the board. Anyone have any questions? Yes.
I'll start. So the plan is, are you taking the roof, you're taking the roof to put a new beam in, but then you're putting dormers on it to create a livable space in the attic. Is that the end game?
Correct. 400, and I should have mentioned that, Mr. Gentry, I apologize. 480 square feet. The livable space in that third floor area can't exceed 500 square feet. There's currently 3 bedrooms on the second floor. In order to reconfigure the stairway because of the renovations, it has to be reconfigured to meet the current code. So the number of bedrooms on the second floor will be reduced from 3 to 2. And the additional living space will be added to the third. So there's no increase in bedrooms.
Thank you.
And I apologize, I should mention that.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. And did you go to historical for, was it for a roof line change? Is that what the?
Oh, right.
And is that, did that relate just to the dormers or to the height as well as the dormer?
It related to both.
Okay,
It was requirement of the building.
It's just the height.
it wasn't just the height, just the dormers.
It's, yeah, we were okay, we could put dormers in as existing as long as we have the setback, which we do.
Right, yeah.
And Jennifer, let's show you, this is, as soon as you touch the roof, you need to go to his.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just had one on the abutters. I think you mentioned you had one positive feedback from an abutter.
I spoke to both the butters, one came up on his own report. Did not happen. The woman who was elderly, they were trying to take care. And she ended up going to a house, the house was in district there, building pipes at first in the house, so it's been vacant for now about 2 years, and where the biggest was concerned. Take the demo delay in a year and trying to get 2 to 3 payments.
I have a question. I'm just trying to understand your picture here. So right now you have the rafters come up and there's no ridge board or ridge beam or anything. So are you jacking up the rafters? What are you doing?
So what will happen is we'll remove the whole roof.
Okay.
We'll put walls up and we'll go up to which.
Like little knee walls and then you're
There'll
putting,
be, yeah, there'll be a knee wall, there'll be in on 18 inches on the short side of the house.
yeah,
And on the dormer gable inside the house, we come back at 3 feet 6 inches, so we can accommodate that. And then we'll go up and put together.
let's see. And then you're putting new rafters up to a higher.
Correct. We'll put a beam up and we'll get to the 17 inches that we're asking.
Okay. I get it. So this is an interesting picture, but this is history, if you will. All right. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Very good. Anything further? I don't have any other questions either that haven't already been answered. So I will close questions from the board and go into deliberations. And again, we're deliberating the criteria for a special permit.
Can I ask one question before we get into that?
Yeah, of course.
There was a mention of parking in the presentation.
Oh, I believe it was parking. Was there off-site parking? Someone, I believe, Mr. Harrison said you had secured
It's probably
at least off-site parking.
Yeah, so there's no currently there's no parking on site. Like the neighbors were pretty happy about that. We were going to add 2 parking spaces and we spoke to John Kerry. I was in favor of that as well, as long as we don't touch his street for 5 years, he's happy.
So currently, well, in the past, people had just parked on the street. Now you're gonna create some off-street parking on the lot.
Two tandem spikes. Then if you can go to, if you can bring up that screen, I think we'll show you.
So the city's happy and the neighbors. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, getting back, if there are no further questions, having closed questions from the board, we'll, wait a minute. Yeah, we're going into deliberations, and we're deliberating the criteria for a special permit for non-conforming.
I'll start.
Please.
Well, there's a two-pronged criteria. One is, are there any new nonconformities? There are none. The second is it substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than its current pre-existing non-conforming state? It's a 17-inch increase in a roof height. And unlike some applications, nothing is, nothing's becoming more non-conforming. Everything's within the current footprint. Historic Commission's already approved it. I think it's pretty minimal. And therefore, I can support it.
Great. Anyone else?
I'll just agree.
Okay. If there are no further deliberations, I can say I agree as well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. There are no further deliberations. We'll close deliberations, and do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the application for 10 Johnson Street.
Thank you, Mr. Delisle's motion. Do we have a second? Second, Mr. Ginta calling the roll on the motion in second. Mr. Swanton?
Yes.
Mr. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Delisle?
Yes.
Mr. Ginta?
Yes.
And I vote yes, it's 5 in the affirmative. Ayes have it, motion carries. Good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen.
Have a
Have
good
a
evening.
good
Care.
Thank you. Okay. All right, moving on to our next application. This is the application of Tom Murdy, 9.5 Harrison Street. The applicant seeks a variance to construct a shed within the required rear yard setback. May we hear from the applicant, Mr. Murdy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, members of the board. So my name is Tom Murdy, the owner and resident at Harrison Street, here with my wife Tanya Murdy,
Evening.
who I dragged here on her birthday.
Happy birthday.
So Harrison Street, so you can see a picture here of our existing lot. Pretty irregular lot shape. We're proposing building a new accessory structure, a shed on our property. 16 by 14 foot. About 14'9" to the peak. We're proposing encroaching within the rear and side yard setbacks. Rear and side yard setbacks, it's minimum 6 foot, so we're proposing encroaching 4 foot on each to get that shed in the corner of the lot there. It's down in the lower right hand corner. The red is the proposed shed. Whereas the black would be maintaining the 6 foot setback. That is the lower part of the property. So, we're proposing that we requesting a variance for the setback. And we're on the board to provide the grant of the variance for the following reasons. And hardships. So hardship due to the lot shape and size. You can see it's very regular, narrow main dimensions. And then the hardship with we're concerned with the shed being in close proximity to the existing dwelling. If we were to maintain those setbacks with the soil conditions that we have, a very permeable sandy sill. We have a fieldstone foundation. And it is very susceptible to water and heavy rain events. We don't want to exacerbate that condition. So moving that to the lower part of the lot will help with that drainage and prevent any additional water that could enter into our basement. And then again, our unique conditions for our lot is landlocked. You can see a very irregular shape. Interesting point, the front of the house used to have access from Water Street through an alley there, so. You know, street, so we can't locate that any other part of the yard, will be within the existing setback, so. We picked that corner for that reason. Feel as though there'd be any detriment to the public good. Project will be modest, discreet, and visually consistent with the surrounding structures. Finish the exterior with clapboards or cedar shakes, matching the existing structure, which has cedar shakes and white trim. Not going to obstruct any views, create noise, or cause the neighborhood. Not interfere with any neighboring properties, public right of ways. We think this will actually enhance the functionality and aesthetics of our property, and thus enriching the neighborhood and surrounding community. We don't feel this contrary to the intent of the zoning bylaws. Regulation that maintain adequate spacing between structures for safety, privacy, and visual relief. This proposal maintains sufficient separation from neighboring dwellings and ensures safety, egress, and access around the yard. In the spirit of the bylaws, respected in the variance would not derogate from this core intent. So, in light of the specific demonstrable hardship, the minimal and non-invasive nature of the request, the absence of public detriment, we ask the board for the shed to be placed within the rear and side setbacks. We also have community support. In our file, we have letters of support from both our rear and side. We have other supporting our local community on Harrison Street. Entered the expanded analysis in the supporting area file this morning, and I have copies of that here.
Very good. If that's it, we'll close that for now, and we may have some questions. Thank you. Thank you both. Okay, closing the presentation portion. We'll go to our ever waning audience in the room. Anyone wishes to speak in connection with the application? Just one hand at a time, please. Don't rush the podium. Yes, sir.
Brian Dixon, 11 Harrison Street. I'm in favor of this project.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Anyone else? Anyone online? Still no one? No one's logged on. It's riveting TV. It's riveting. It's compelling television. I don't know what we're competing against, but it's crazy. All right. No further comments. I'll close public comment and go to questions from the board. Mr. Gill.
Is this gonna be put on a concrete port?
Well,
Is it gonna
we're
be?
proposing woven geofabric and 6 inches of crushed stone, 3/4 crushed stone on PT sleepers.
Okay, yeah, so pressure treated wood, and then you'll have ladders work around it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll go next. Is there a fence around your yard?
There currently is a fence around the rear property line and the property line to the top of the page here.
Okay, so this would be so close to the rear property line fence, you wouldn't be able to walk behind it.
The 2-foot setback are, so the fence kind of terminates where that black line is, and then it's coming down. So we don't have, right, so we don't have fence beyond the corner of our house.
I'd have to turn sideways.
So it must be okay.
Stop.
I guess if you go to the Muni map. You see how there we go. So our fence line, you can kind of make it out there in the bottom center of the page, kind of cuts into the rear property line there, so we'll take that down. So there would be access behind it, but we're proposing to maintain 2 foot off that property line, so we could get a skinnier guy back there beside it.
Would you consider moving it back to the 6 foot? Or I mean,
So
you're locked in pretty tight on the
We're
2
locked.
foot?
Yeah, we're locked in because moving to the 6 foot now, we'll be right against the there to approach and start to cover windows in the rear of the house. Again, with the soil conditions, our water we already get. I don't want to do anything that would increase that shed there. Also worried about snow drifts with the two structures that goes together.
And how about the other corner of the lot, top right? Is there a reason it couldn't go up there? That looks like a bigger chunk of land. I'm just trying to find a way that you're not jammed up against 2 feet against the lot line, even though most of the places in the south end are that close.
Yeah, if you go around the south, I mean, the majority
I
of the
can't
shed-
throw stones, my shed's on the lot,
Yeah.
but it was put there in the 1800s, before someone knew where the lot lines were. I mean, the top right, you wouldn't be able to fit it up there and it stays 6 feet away from everything?
The top right,
Yeah.
so that soil area actually started to become some sinkholes there from water last winter. King tide, so it's very soft right there. As opposed to.
And again, I think putting it there with the 6 foot setback, I would cut the yard. Right now we have a nice, what we have for a little yard, it's only 5,300 square foot lot. So we have a nice L that the kids are back there playing in. Put that shed, that part of the closing's not gonna cover it. Reduce the usability and the enjoyment. Little yard.
Okay.
I'll go next.
Oh, next, please.
I'll go next. You already have a shed up on the top left there. How large is that shed?
The existing shed?
Yeah.
8 by 8, 36 square feet.
8 by 8.
Very tiny.
And this new proposed one is
224.
16 by 14. My colleague was asking, why not put it closer to the house? Have you considered putting it against the house? And I know you said drainage, but you could have, rather than a roof like this, you could have a roof that just took the water away from the building completely. You know what I mean? And you could deal with the drainage issue by having it go away from, if you put the shed against the house and had a sloped roof that went highest at the house and went down, it would take all the water off and take it way away from the house.
Yeah, right now, it being detached, I think, we didn't trigger any historic review or.
I guess, Andy, do you know if you attach a shed to a house, does that trigger a historic review?
I don't know what the proportion is that would be altered here. I'm gonna guess not, based on just, initial glance of what we're seeing here in that context. That's fine. I think you're trying to address the setback being so close to the lot line with the larger structure is typically allowed, in zoning.
I mean, it sounds like it is an option.
Yeah, I'll leave it to them as far as somebody, it certainly seems from a structure perspective, so the option, may still, require review.
I understand.
Might not be the same setback needed or relief needed.
I understand. It just doesn't trigger a variance when it's
Right,
more than 6 feet away from the line.
right, because it's larger in size and a little small accessory structure.
Significant increase in the scope of the project. too.
I'm sorry, could you hear you?
So that'd be a significant increase in the scope of the project. Addition to the house, the standalone structure as far as.
Actually, you wouldn't even need to, I mean, if you want to, wouldn't have to touch the house. You could just have a roof come up to catch the water coming off the house and take it away. So
Yeah, it's just, we have it's all windows in the rear there, so that's starting to get funky. Trying to maintain the existing look of our. So, some utility.
16 by 14 is it's almost a garage and it's a pretty big shed.
Yes.
Do you
She's a gardener.
have a what?
And a gardener.
Garden.
We redid the house in 2016. We had gutted it and we kept the historical footprint of it. Unfortunately, with the house from the 1840s, there's no storage. So we have 0 storage in our basement. It takes up so much water that it's not a place that we can actually store anything due to like mold. So.
Lots of hobbies, 2 boys, bikes,
Hockey.
recreational lobstermen, gonna store those traps. I'm sure the neighbors will see them in the lawn.
All right. Okay. It for my questions. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll close questions from the board and go into deliberations. And of course, with this one, we are deliberating the criteria for a variance. Who would like to start? Please.
Sorry, I support this and I'm just looking, they have an unusual house like most people in the south end, and they have a little bit of a yard that's sort of all together there, that L shaped. And it appears that that shed really, to keep their yard intact for, you know, outside activities, needs to get tucked into that back left corner. I don't feel like they have a lot of options. It's just a very small lot. It's a regular shape, so it's not ideal. And as long as the neighbors are in support with letters, I'm okay with it.
Okay, any other deliberations?
Yeah, I'd like to make one. I have a hard time with that logic because I live in the south end as well. It's a very tight neighborhood. And if you said, you know, if somebody doesn't have another room, we'll give them a variance if nobody objects, and then we'd have a line out the door for variances. That's a pretty low criteria. And one of the criteria is an odd shaped lot. And yes, this is an odd shaped lot, but that's on the street side. The back is more normal than most. I mean, it's like almost a rectangle in the back. So I don't see the lot. I mean, to me, this is somebody who wants to put a very large shed very close to a property line, in a neighborhood that's already very overbuilt. I know we don't set precedences when we do things, but if the hurdle is your neighbors are okay, you know, and you don't have much room, we'll let you have a variance. I think that is very hard in this neighborhood. I don't see the rationale for a variance here. I lived here, I built the thing closer to the house. I might lose a window, but I wanted that larger shed. I think there are alternatives here. So anyway, I can't.
Any other deliberation?
Yeah, I would probably even take it a step further than Ken and say that here for variance, we're totally considering a legal standard that has criteria that are set forth, and it's not sort of the same as special permit for nonconformities where we have the ability to take into consideration, you know, input from the neighbors. I think with the variance, we have to meet certain threshold, and that's what we have to do based on the facts. And for me, I don't think the circumstances, so we have, you know, there's 4 criteria. It's 10H6C. There are 4 criteria. The conditions and the circumstances are unique to the applicant's lot, structure, or building and do not apply to the neighboring land structures or buildings in the same district. So that's the first criteria. And I think that this one doesn't pass the test for me, because I think that having a small lot is not unique to the south end. There are many, many, many lots that are small, and many residents that could come and ask for variance based on that. So I think I'm having a real problem with this one also.
Any other?
I'll just give my 2 cents. You know, I think what you're hearing is there's a big difference between a variance and a special permit. Variance is a big hurdle, and we struggle giving variances out if they don't meet these criteria. And I think the first bullet that was just mentioned is a tough one. Conditions and circumstances are unique to that lot, structure, or building. I mean, it's not that unique. I would guess most of the properties in the south end have that same uniqueness, if you will. So it's tough, and I think also you're asking a lot to put such a large structure so close to the lot line. You could shrink it a little bit, you could scoot it over to one side a little bit, probably get within that 6 feet. And I think that's what makes it even harder for us, is that you're asking for a lot of relief for something that, I don't think the conditions are there for variance. It would be much easier if this was just a special permit, as Ken mentioned, if it was just the building slammed up against.
Can I ask a question? So did we apply for the wrong?
No, you applied for circumstances you're requesting. Because you're so close to the lot line, it's a variance. If you went back to the 6 feet, I think you could actually build it by right. Right? If you went to a building that was 6 feet away from the lot line, you could just get a building permit. You wouldn't have to come before a board. So with that said, I would have a hard time
I
supporting
appreciate
as well.
I appreciate that. I'll just add my thoughts. I find myself, I'm certainly not in disagreement with what appears to be the majority of my colleagues. And I too sort of respect the rule of, the legal criteria. And I've been doing this a little while as well, and also understand that life is, kind of a fluid and malleable type of a thing that doesn't always conveniently fall into those boxes. Yet our board, with respect to variances, it's the highest bar, so we're a bit beholden to that criteria. Though I find myself, understanding this application. I don't live in the South End, but I certainly understand the South End. And I respect my colleagues who do, but my alignment is more with Mr. Ginta. I can probably see my way through to supporting it, but it appears that numerically, as I'm sure you've heard, that alone, even in the event that Mr. Ginta and I were to support it, it falls significantly short of carrying the day for the evening. So we always, as a courtesy to any applicant before us, rather than have and host a vote that could be a negative vote, because the other technical feature of that is that if you were to have your application as is, receive a vote here and it doesn't succeed, you could be barred from reapplying for up to 2 years unless you made a material and substantial change. We wouldn't want to do that to anyone. We don't like to practice zoning by ambush. So I want to have that conversation out loud because obviously you can read the tea leaves. We want to give you the opportunity, if you so choose, to take a step back and come back before us and maybe give maybe some additional creative thought to how else this might go without running into this often locked door in the sort of virtual legal construct that we're just duty bound to have to adhere to when it comes to variances. It's the highest and toughest bar. I take note that there's no objection from neighbors. That carries a lot of weight with me, but as you can hear, it doesn't seem to, it's not going to be successful based on the numbers we've just heard, so we have to pay attention to that too. What are your thoughts on, would you want to get a continuance and come back?
So we could also offer, if you'd like, further discussion with the Office of Planning and Development, zoning administrator and staff, just that obviously can't speak to the board, but understanding the feedback tonight, talk a little bit more about, other options that may or may not work for what you're trying to accomplish. Before you circle back.
Yeah, and this way you're not coming back before us with, hey, what about this?
Or you may find you don't even need to come back.
Right, there are some options, and I think, we've certainly, heard the options. Mr. Swanton had pointed out one, I believe Mr. Swanton and Mr. Delisle both, that there's a no relief needed option or a different relief that isn't variance. So, with that, maybe do we want to continue this as a placeholder?
So do you think, I guess, what the board thinks about perhaps the date for continuance? Did you think it's just a week or two timeframe you would need, or how long do you think you might need on your end to serve our office? In a week or so?
We don't have a meeting for another month.
Right, so that's true, sorry.
So I would say let's plan for the next meeting that we have, which is 1 month from today. So it would be the second meeting in May. Whenever that is. But happy to put you on that docket and then you just sort of work backwards from that date.
Yep.
Gives you plenty of runway. We certainly appreciate your patience this evening and sir, you as well for coming and commenting. But that's typically what we like to do, so that nobody gets an unexpected surprise.
That's May 27th.
May 27th?
That's the second meeting.
Okay, all right. Do we have a motion? Shall we go ahead and do that? We'll just give you the continuance to that date.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, do we have a motion to continue at the applicant's request to the meeting of May 27th?
So moved.
Seconded.
Great. Motion's made and seconded. Mr. Swanton?
Mr. Shagnon seconded it.
Oh, yeah, no, but I meant like, now we're gonna call a roll. Mr. Swanton?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, this is where you say yes. Yes. And action. Mr. Shed,
Yes.
Mr. Delat.
Yes.
Mr. Ginta.
Yeah.
Chad Petty. That's 5 in the affirmative. The ayes have it. Thank you, folks, for the presentation, and sir, thank you for your comments, and we'll see you back on the 27th.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, going to our next application and our last one. This is the application of 209 High Street, a special permit for nonconformities by Kristen Hunter to construct a garden shed, increasing a pre-existing nonconforming lot coverage. Ms. Hunter, good evening.
Yes, good evening. I am requesting relief for a small garden shed. The property is somewhat of a property, and recently in the last couple of years has been restoring the property, and that's also part of that trigger. We had to save streets to school with Johnson Street, which I think had about a little over 200 feet of sidewalk, 300 feet of sidewalk, and that the garden shed would be a little bit more easy to maintain the property with snow blower. Originally, when the property was built in the 1800s, there were several acres of the property, and the carriage house bites that storage. In modern times, in the 80s, it was converted to a family. Then there was areas where it was able to be stored tools and gardening tools and things like that. Currently, there's not very much space for an outdoor space now for the modern technology that we have with snow blowers. And so that's the relief. The property itself has several old growth trees, including several maples and dogwood, very much covered beach. So in working with historic garden designer, the proposed location is currently positioned here. And we extensively researched the property, trying to find a polyhouse to replicate that was maybe on the property. Nothing came out. I reached out to the Morrill family. I was able to obtain several photos. Historically, it's that time where that was located, there used to be a side porch that wrapped around that house during the Victorian period. So that was the only photo I could find. There was one structure that was an arbor that was put in during the Victorian period. And we found that replicating something that had Victorian detail was appropriate for High Street. And that was something that was from the late 1700s, early 1800s. Sort of mimicking that hip roof style with wood shingle and dove coop. So these were the recommendations from the historic art designer. See a photo of it, what she does for a living. There's a picture that the Morrills were kind enough to share with me. You can see where the location would be. It's in that side, or there used to be a very large side porch. And the other photo was the only other structure that was on the property. Anything that we should be replicating on the street.
Very good. Anything else?
I think that's it. I think it's a minor modification with less than 0.5% of lot coverage. So, okay. And the property is very large, property to maintain, which obviously we all have demanding mistresses on High Street. These houses are always in constant need of something, so it'll be a little easier.
Very good. Thank you very much for the presentation. Okay. Seeing nobody in the room, any public comment? One online either?
One online.
All right, closing that. Questions from the board?
Yeah.
Two doors face High Street or the one, door faces High Street?
The, one door is facing the rear of the property. We can go to either side. With the front access so that if there was, the snow blower could start on the High Street side, continue down Johnson and then come around to the back. Keeping up with the High Street side is the first priority, which is the most landscaping area to keep up with.
Will you have like a brick walk come out to join your sidewalk in front of it?
We currently have put in some reclaimed granite that we received from curators. We've been reclaiming materials. We do some cobblestone
Oh, to make like a little pathway out.
Yeah.
and stuff.
and a garden path. They've made a couple of suggestions. She's given me some choices, but stone curators has been a resource for historic materials. So we've not put in any new material. We've tried to really limit what we put in for new material. Brick, obviously, on the sidewalk project, we bricked up to the carriage house.
Yep.
And that was the city brick, so that's the H brick, which is what the city uses for their. The other pieces of the property will be.
Yeah, I was asking more out of curiosity because it's like, because based on the map here, you've got 31 feet between
That was the requirement.
reflected shed side. So I'm just wondering, that's a long way to try to navigate a snow blower over.
We, they're already there, they
Yeah.
were originally in the flagstone and played past,
Oh,
they're
okay.
already there, so. And that was what was recommended, we could. Input, but.
Oh, no, I don't have any preference regarding that. I was merely asking out of curiosity.
So that's the, we do have a pathway that goes to the back section as well, so either which is the front or the back. So, whatever, there's a preference.
Thank you. Either way. But I mean, maybe the two doors would be better facing High Street as opposed to the sort of man door.
Photo, the nice doors.
She,
Yeah.
we had some barn doors created for the carriage house.
Yeah, the
I don't know
carriage
if
house.
anybody
Nice.
didn't pass the property, but I restored the staple detail in the front, which was originally there. The morals for Hollander and Moral, which the division of Cadillac. And there were two staple doors, one acquired by my mother. An architect in the 80s convinced her to eliminate that detail. And because of our metrics, we decided to do it as a siding detail, and not doors, but
Yeah, no, it looks great.
we did,
Yeah.
so we had,
And those, so the doors on the shed would look similar to that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's great, yeah.
those were all, you know, we had two, again, doors put on the side of the house as well. There was one barn door. And, so with the French doors, we had French doors that, again, a lot of the detail. The architect's recommendation, the 80s.
Mhm.
So I kind of struggled a bit, but we put back some of those details that were originally part of the home, so. My goal is to use obviously. It's 30 years there, so we've really. Taken a lot of historic steps to maintain the actual historic fabric of the home.
Yeah, no, I remember conversations on earlier, maybe 2 summers ago, yeah.
So,
No, it sounds like you've given this a lot more thought than my question. Yeah. Probably deserved. You've got this. I think I don't have a preference as to how you're gonna do it, except that you have it well in hand.
Great. Any, where were we? We in deliberations?
I asked a question,
Oh,
your question.
Sorry.
again, I'm open to whatever suggestions. You know,
some area of hedging that's in the front that can be kept or not visible from the street as well. It's kind of the air.
Mhm.
From the street side, you won't see very much.
Yeah, no, and that's probably good, yeah.
Maintain some.
Again,
Minimize the impact.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Any other questions?
Just have a quickie. Can you scroll down to the one with the pictures, the next page, I think? The top left picture here?
Yeah.
That's what it used to look like?
No, that is a shed that Allison had designed previously. Ours will be very similar.
Okay, I was gonna say, it looks an awful lot like the one you're proposing. Okay,
Yeah.
I get it.
Obviously, divide, she has some lanterns on there.
No, I think it's lovely. I have no questions.
She and I are still trying to find other, I've worked extensively with Mass Historical, trying to find a couple of folly houses that were in Newburyport between the dovecot or a copper finial, sometimes I would put a copper finial. But, we've been struggling with a couple of those details, but.
Okay.
Excellent. Any other questions? No? We'll close questions and go to deliberations. Who wants to hit the deliberations portion?
I don't mind starting.
Very good.
Nobody else wants to. I mean, it's the usual two-pronged test for a special permit. Does it create any new? No, it does not. And then is it more detrimental to the neighborhood? It is a small shed. It is well set back from everywhere. It's a small shed on, quite frankly, a large lot for Newburyport with a huge house next to it. It's a little shed and it's well set back and it's a pretty shed. I don't think this is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than its current situation, so I can support.
Anyone else? Thank you.
I have to agree, and I think this applicant should talk to the previous applicant and we'd be all set.
Yeah.
That's a nice,
But,
that's a nice modest shed.
Yeah.
That is,
Yeah.
Stuck that in. And it's very attractive. Yeah, so I can support it. It's very nice.
I can support it also.
I support it.
I do as well. It's very thoughtfully designed. It's lovely and it's appropriate, more than, in fact. And
Yeah.
if we weren't here this evening, any one of us would have believed that it's always been there.
there's crap.
I asked the question. And, so well done in that respect. That's a great reference to the architectural
Yeah.
vernacular of its primary principal structure, to which it's an accessory, and that's hard to do without a time machine. So,
It's nice to see that property coming along.
Yeah.
Thank you.
very
It's
good.
been a long road.
Yeah.
Lots to go.
Thank you. All right, we have no other deliberations. I'll close deliberations. We have a motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the special permit for nonconformities for 209 High Street.
Thank you, Mr. Swanton, and do we have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Mr. Swanton and seconded by Mr. Delisle. Is that right? Mr.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Calling the roll, Mr. Swanton.
Yes.
Mr. Shannon.
Yes.
Mr. Delisle.
Yes.
Mr. Ginta.
Yes.
And I vote yes, 5 in the affirmative, and this motion carries. Thank you
Thank you.
very much, and thank you for your patience this evening. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our public hearings for this evening, and with no other business before the board, we'll close public hearings and go into the business meeting. We have the minutes of April 8th, 2025. Any comments for Gretchen? Any changes?
I have one.
Sure.
It's just a suggestion in wording.
Uh-huh.
You can leave it the way it is. To be, so it's 10.5 Auburn Street, second paragraph. The last sentence reads, he said the application does not meet criteria for licensing agreement. You could leave it like that. I think it would be easier said. He said the application does not meet the criteria for a licensing agreement. Either way. I had to read it 3 or 4 times to say, there's a preposition missing somewhere. Come on.
Anything? Thank you.
When you leave off of that, it's no big deal.
Ms. Joy, go forth and sin no more. To our Father, an act of contrition. All right.
All night.
Any other comments?
No, I say we approve the minutes as
All right.
submitted.
Motion to approve has been made, by Mr. Chairman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Very good. Motion seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, no votes. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Minutes are approved as is. And, that's it. I've got nothing, and, Andy, you better have nothing.
I have nothing.
And, so
We're canceling our next meeting, right?
That's correct.
we're gonna cancel our next two meetings. No,
Just one, the first of the May.
Is it because lack of support?
No, the vote, we're voting that day.
Oh, that's that special,
so we're not canceling it. It's canceled by.
Being
by
canceled.
corporation.
something bigger than us.
Yeah, we don't.
It came up after we scheduled.
If you can, yeah, so we don't have to cancel what can't be legally held, so.
Right.
So we'll just note it. We'll note it with all prepositions.
I think it was,
That's all I meant to do.
it's a good thing, right?
All right, thank you, guys. Motion to adjourn, and we're good. Have a great night.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, we have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Uh,
Yeah, we are so adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.